I was on my way to Phoenix, driving alone through a stretch of desert highway that felt like it had no end. The clock on the dash blinked 12:43 a.m. My GPS had lost signal an hour ago, and the road had become little more than a ribbon of cracked asphalt under a starless sky. The hum of the tires and the low murmur of static from the radio were my only companions. I had been driving for nearly 9 hours. My eyes burned, my back ached. But more than anything, I felt something I hadn't expected: unease. Not from exhaustion, but from the way the darkness outside the windshield seemed too thick, too still. There were no headlights behind me, no signs of life ahead, just desert and silence, stretching infinitely in every direction. When the neon sign appeared through the haze of dust and fatigue, it was like a beacon, though not a comforting one. Desert Haven Inn buzzed in flickering red letters, one of the ends completely dark. Beneath it, a second sign flashed vacancies in sputtering blue. The light cast long shadows over the gravel lot, giving the illusion of movement where there was none. I pulled in slowly, headlights sweeping across chipped stucco walls, yellowed curtains, and a sagging roofline. The structure was U-shaped, 2 stories, with a dim light at the end of the second-floor walkway flickering like a dying star. A single moth circled the porch light like it was stuck in time. I sat in the car for a full minute, engine idling, fingers tight on the wheel. My stomach turned. Not from hunger. Something about the place unsettled me, but I was too tired to care. The air was dry as I stepped out. Gravel crunched underfoot. The silence was palpable. No wind, no insects, no hum of distant cars, just silence that pressed in on you. The lobby smelled of old paper, mildew, and stale coffee. The overhead light buzzed like it had a nervous twitch. The front desk was unattended, a small bell resting on a sticky-looking counter. Behind it, a wall of keys hung from hooks, numbered brass tags tarnished with time. I rang the bell once. Nothing. Then a man appeared from behind a beaded curtain, thin, hollow-eyed, with skin like old parchment. He moved like he hadn't stretched in years, like his limbs had forgotten how to bend properly. "Room 6, he muttered, sliding a key across the counter without looking at me. "Don't bother the guests." I opened my mouth to ask a question, maybe just his name, but stopped. Something in his voice told me not to dig, not here. "Not planning on it," I managed, forcing a dry chuckle. The hallway to the room stretched long and narrow, lined with faded wallpaper and buzzing fluorescent lights. My footsteps echoed too loud on the creaky floorboards. Each door I passed was closed, some with peeling numbers, others with faint scratches on the surface, like something had clawed at them in desperation. Room 6 was near the end of the hall, the key stuck in the lock. When I finally forced it open, the door groaned in protest, swinging slowly inward as if reluctant to let me in. The room inside was small but functional. A sagging bed with a mustard-colored comforter, a wooden dresser, water-stained and nicked, a nightstand with a humming lamp that flickered when I entered. The air was stale, like it hadn't been disturbed in weeks. The carpet was worn thin in some places, revealing bare concrete beneath. A single frame painting hung crookedly above the bed, something abstract, red streaks against a black background, almost like claw marks. But it wasn't the bed or the smell or the humming light that caught my eye. It was the bathroom. The door stood slightly ajar. A soft drip echoed within, steady and rhythmic. I stepped closer. The bathroom was small, cracked tiles, yellowed porcelain. The faucet was dripping, each droplet unnaturally loud. I reached out and twisted the knob tighter. The dripping stopped. That's when I saw the mirror. It was cracked across the upper corner, just slightly, like a spider web beginning to spread. The glass was stained around the edges, but that wasn't what got me. It was the color. Instead of reflecting the soft amber glow of the bathroom light, the mirror seemed to drink it in. The reflection was darker, almost like it belonged to another room entirely. I leaned in. My reflection stared back at me. My own eyes, my own features. But they felt distant, like I was looking at a photograph of myself rather than a true reflection. The color was off, cooler, grayer. I tilted my head. My reflection lagged. Just a heartbeat. I blinked. It blinked back, too late. A chill crept down my spine. The air grew noticeably colder. I exhaled and watched my breath fog lightly against the glass. Something about the mirror immediately put me off, not because of what I saw, but because of what I felt, like I was being watched from the other side, and whoever or whatever was watching was waiting. As I brushed my teeth, I couldn't stop glancing up at the mirror. The glass seemed darker than it should have been. Not dirty, just dull, like it wasn't reflecting light so much as swallowing it. My own face looked faded, almost filtered, like a photocopy of a photograph. I leaned in closer, narrowing my eyes. There was a delay, barely a second, but enough. I tilted my head slightly. My reflection followed, but just a breath too late. I blinked. It blinked, but not in sync. I froze, then laughed it off, out loud. "Get some sleep," I muttered to myself, spitting foam into the sink. "You're losing it." Still, something gnawed at me. The mirror made no sound when I tapped it. None of the usual thud of drywall behind glass. Instead, it sounded thin, hollow. I tapped again, 3 times. Then came 3 soft taps in return from the other side. I dropped the toothbrush. My heart lurched. Was it the plumbing? An echo? I leaned in, barely breathing. "Hello?" Silence. Then, a giggle. Faint, childlike. A whisper of laughter as if someone was trying to muffle it. I stared. Every hair on my body stood on end. That wasn't an echo. I slowly reached forward and touched the mirror. The glass was cold, colder than it should have been. It didn't feel like room temperature. It felt like touching the outside of a freezer. Just as I began to pull my hand back, a foggy imprint bloomed against the inside of the glass. A handprint, smaller than mine, Sebastian. Fingers long and thin, pressed from the other side. I stumbled back, knocking the soap dispenser into the sink. It clattered loudly. When I looked again, the mirror was clear. No hand, no fog. But now I noticed something else. The edges of the mirror were sealed, not with screws or adhesive, but with caulk. A thick, uneven bead of it, yellowed with age, holding the mirror tight to the wall. I wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't gotten so close. Who caulks a mirror like that? And why? Back in the bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the door. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. I picked up my phone and took a photo of the mirror through the open bathroom door. I checked the image in the gallery. In the photo, the mirror was darker than it should have been. My reflection wasn't there. I took another picture, this time with flash, and this time there was a shape, vague, blurred, at the far edge of the mirror, like someone ducking just out of sight. I felt bile rise in my throat. Then I remembered something. A woman on the news years ago, warning travelers about two-way mirrors in motels. Knock on the glass, check the reflection with your fingernail. If there's a gap between your nail and the reflection, it's a real mirror. If there isn't, it might be a window. I grabbed a coin from my bag and returned to the bathroom. Pressed it against the mirror. No gap. The coin met its reflection directly. I was staring into a window. I didn't know what I expected. Maybe darkness, maybe nothing. What I didn't expect was for my reflection to smirk, just slightly, as if it knew something I didn't. And then blink, but I hadn't. I backed away slowly, heart pounding. The bathroom light flickered once, then stabilized. I reached for the doorknob, hand trembling. But just before I shut it, I noticed something else. On the floor, just beneath the edge of the mirror, barely visible unless you crouched, was a smudge, red-brown, old, blood. I squatted down, and beneath the sink, scratched into the tile grout, were faint letters. No escape. I felt a surge of panic crawl up my throat. A sudden creak behind me. I turned. Nothing. But the mirror had fogged slightly again. No steam, no heat. Just breath. Not mine. A second fog print appeared beside the first. Then a third. Too high, too wide, too many hands. I slammed the door shut and locked it from the outside. Then I shoved a chair against the handle and sat in bed for the rest of the night, listening to the tapping and the soft giggles, and something else beneath it all, a scraping from inside the walls. I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the bathroom door, trying to rationalize what I had seen, what I had felt. All the logic in the world couldn't explain the breath on the glass, the bloody smudge beneath the sink, or the fog that returned without heat. But I couldn't leave without knowing. At 3:12 a.m., I stood up, grabbed my flashlight from the car, returned to the mirror. My hands were shaking. The mirror didn't want to be touched. I could feel it. The air around it was dense, like static before a lightning strike. But I forced myself to reach out. I inspected the frame carefully. It wasn't mounted, it was sealed. Caulked all around the edge, but the seal was old, dry, brittle, and sloppy, done hastily, unevenly, like someone wanted it done fast, not well. I wedged my car key into a corner and pried. Bits of caulk crumbled to the floor like dried skin. After several tense minutes, the edge popped, then another. My palms were slick with sweat, and the entire mirror swung outward like a door. Behind it was a dark cavity, a hidden room, maybe 3 feet wide. It ran the length of the bathroom wall. It wasn't a real room, it was more like a surveillance corridor, just enough space for someone to crouch, to watch. I aimed my flashlight inside. The walls were lined with black soundproof foam. Old wires ran across the ceiling like veins. On a small table sat a dusty video recorder, a pile of used VHS tapes, and an open file folder. Cobwebs fluttered as I moved the beam. Inside the folder were photographs, dozens of them, all of different people, men, women, couples, all unaware, some smiling into the mirror, some brushing their teeth, some staring blankly, seemingly lost in thought. Each one photographed from inside this hidden room, through the mirror. They didn't know they were being watched. Some were asleep, some were undressing, some were staring at their reflections. And in every photo, scrawled in red ink at the bottom, watched. But then I found something else, something worse. A photo of me, taken just hours ago. Me brushing my teeth, back turned, the timestamp in red, 12:46 a.m. I hadn't even checked in until after that. I shuffled the photos aside with trembling hands. Beneath them was a torn notebook, half burned, with scribbled entries. He watches through the night, he mimics, he learns. They never remember checking in. He replaces the ones who see him. Then a final line in frantic capital letters. If you see yourself smile, run. I stood paralyzed, every part of me screaming to flee. But some cold logic inside told me, this wasn't just some psycho watching people. This was something older. Something that fed on faces, memories, identity. And I had been noticed, but that wasn't all. On the far wall, something was painted in dark ink, or blood. A diagram, circles, names, connecting lines. It looked like a family tree, but it had my name at the center. I leaned closer. Beneath my name was written, Iteration 9. Above it, branching lines, names I didn't recognize. Photos pinned under them. One looked eerily like me, but with different eyes. A man from 1974, another from 1980. All the same face, slightly altered, recycled, a cycle of identities, a lineage of mimicry. Was I the original, or just the next replica in line? In the corner, another mirror stood, freestanding, dusty, but untouched by time. I approached it, hand trembling. As I drew near, my reflection stepped forward, before I did, and smiled. Not my smile. Too wide, too calm, too knowing. The reflection lifted its hand and waved. I didn't. Then its lips moved, but no sound came out. I strained my ears. A whisper echoed inside the hidden corridor, like a wind moving through dry reeds. Let me in. I backed away, stumbled, knocked into the table. The camera fell and shattered on the concrete. The lights flickered. From the far side of the mirror, I heard footsteps, soft, measured, coming closer. I turned toward the passage, ready to run, and saw a second figure, another version of me, but not me. His eyes were black, hollow, like polished obsidian. He didn't blink, didn't breathe. He just stood there, head tilted, like studying an insect. He moved when I moved, but then he stepped forward when I didn't. "You're not ready," he whispered, and lunged. I threw myself out of the passage, crashing into the sink. The mirror slammed shut behind me. I stared at my reflection. It blinked in perfect time, but I no longer knew if that was good or bad, and sat in bed for the rest of the night, listening. I felt bile rise in my throat. I turned to leave, but there was movement in the far corner of the hidden space. I froze. A figure, crouched low, pressed against the far wall. Pale skin, black hoodie, eyes wide open, reflecting the flashlight. They hadn't been there when I opened the panel. They hadn't made a sound. They were just watching me. I stepped back, the beam trembling in my hands. "Who are you?" I whispered. The figure tilted its head. Then in my voice it answered, "You left me here." I stared, breath caught in my throat. "No, that's not possible." It took a step forward. "I remember everything now," it said. "The first time, the mirror, the choice." It pulled something from the floor, a photo, held it up in the beam of light. It was me, standing in front of the mirror, just like now, but the timestamp read 2013. 10 years ago. "You chose to forget," the thing whispered. "But you've been here before." My knees buckled. I fell backward, scrambling toward the exit. The walls around me pulsed, the foam darkening like it was wet. Memories, fractured, half-buried, rushed forward. Another mirror, another motel, another night I had convinced myself was a dream. The figure lunged. I dropped the flashlight. It clattered. The bulb shattered. Darkness. But before I escaped, I caught one last glimpse. There were dozens of them in the walls. All versions of me, all watching. Some angry, some pleading, some smiling. One of them reached out as I passed, grabbing my arm with strength that didn't match its size. "Don't leave us again," it hissed. I yanked free and crawled out of the wall space, slamming the mirror shut. But it didn't close all the way. The figure's hand reached through the gap. I grabbed the broken caulk tube from earlier and jammed it into the seam. The hand flinched back, the door creaked, but held. I stood in the bathroom, chest heaving, heart threatening to rupture. Then I heard it, whispers. Not from the wall, from the sink. I leaned forward slowly. Water pooled, dark and oily, swirling even though the faucet was off. Inside, I saw my face staring back. Not my reflection. The other me. He grinned. "You still think you're the real one," he said. The light bulb above me shattered. I scrambled out of the bathroom, slammed the door, and shoved the dresser in front of it. Something thudded against the door from inside. Once, twice, then silence. Until the mirror giggled, low and growing louder. I sat frozen on the bed, unable to look away from the bathroom door. Minutes passed, maybe hours. The sound behind the door stopped, replaced by breathing. Not loud, just steady, close. I inched toward the dresser, grabbed the rusted motel Bible from the nightstand, and clutched it like it might mean something. The cover was cracked, warped from years of humidity. When I opened it, something slipped out. A photo of me, but younger, standing beside the night clerk, smiling, my arm around his shoulder. On the back, scribbled in pen, "Guest of the month, January 2013. I dropped it. I wasn't just a visitor here. I had lived here, or something wearing me had. I stared at my suitcase, now slightly ajar. Inside was another set of clothes I didn't remember packing. Different style, outdated, a keychain with a tag labeled Room 6. My hands began to tremble. I stood and faced the mirror above the dresser. My reflection stared back at me, but not quite. His eyes were just a little too bright, his expression too neutral. Then he lifted his hand and waved. I couldn't, I ran. Out the door, down the hall, into the office. The night clerk was gone, the TV was static. The lobby lights were off. The air felt wrong, like it was thicker, harder to breathe. On the desk was a single VHS tape, labeled Room 6, 3:12 a.m. I didn't watch it. I just ran. The desert air hit me like a wall, dry and cold. I barely noticed the gravel cutting into my feet as I sprinted across the lot. My car key trembled in my fingers. I jumped into the driver's seat, jammed the key into the ignition, and turned. The engine sputtered. Once, twice, then started. I hit the gas and peeled away, dust clouding the rearview mirror. For a moment, I dared to glance back. The motel stood silent, every window dark, except one. Room 6. The mirror was glowing, not reflecting light, emitting it, like it was alive. I didn't sleep for days. Couldn't. Every mirror I passed, every reflection, my own face felt unfamiliar. Wrong, delayed. Sometimes in windows or black screens, I would see myself blink before I did, or smile just faintly when I wasn't smiling at all. I ripped the mirrors from my apartment walls, duct taped the bathroom cabinet, covered the TV in a sheet, but it didn't matter. They find a way. 2 weeks later, a package arrived. No return address, just my name, written in handwriting that looked like mine, but wasn't. Inside was a mirror, small, antique, cracked in the upper corner, and a note. You left the door open. You left us behind. Now they visit me in dreams. Sometimes it's the 2013 version of me, whispering things I haven't lived yet. Sometimes it's dozens of versions, gathered around a mirror, watching me sleep from the other side. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know if I ever was. But the worst part, the part I still haven't said aloud, is this. I've started smiling when I look in the mirror. And I don't remember deciding to. I tried to break it. The little mirror from the package. I smashed it with a hammer. But it didn't shatter. It pulsed. The crack in the upper corner began to spread. Not from the impact, but like veins crawling across the surface. And from within I heard something. Murmuring. A low chant in a voice that sounded like mine. Only older. More ragged. That night, I dreamed I was standing in room 6 again. Only this time the reflection didn't wait for me to move. It stepped forward first, pressed against the glass, reached out, and smiled. I'm the one who got out, it said. I woke up in a cold sweat. But my apartment had changed. The walls were yellowed, the carpet stained. The buzzing lamp on the nightstand flickered like it did that night. I was back, room 6. But when I opened this door, it wasn't the hallway outside. It was the mirror. Endless mirrors stacked in rows, reflections layered infinitely. And in each one, a version of me. Some broken, some smiling, some screaming, and one front and center, just watching me. He raised his hand, and I followed. Not because I chose to, but because I no longer had a choice. I am the reflection now, waiting for the next visitor to smile.